Welcome back to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where we share big ideas that deserve more attention in about the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm Joe Hirsch. Today's wish comes from Bianca Best. Bianca is a global executive, best-selling author, certified coach, keynote speaker, and mom of 4. She's worked with brands like Google, Amazon, and Snap, and she's the author of 3 books. Her latest, Big Impact Without Burnout, and she has a fabulous British accent, which you're going to enjoy. Bianca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here across the pond. So tell me what you wish more people knew.
I wish more people knew that burnout does not have to be the price of ambition, and that work should be a joy, not a struggle, and that with conscientious strategies, we can all soar.
Yeah, well, amen to that. But people seem to be working much harder. They're hustling more. They just don't seem to have a lot to show for it other than all that burnout that seems to be creeping in. They're on the verge of a full-on collapse at times even. Most high achievers, if you ask them, they're not going to go for balance. They're too busy listening to that inner critic that's telling them, you got to do more to be more. What would you tell those people who are at risk for burnout?
Look, I think that is such a good question. It's a loaded question. And there are 3 core areas that you're actually addressing in that question. You're talking about ambition, you're talking about overproductivity, and you're talking about balance. And so I'd like to just spend a moment and just go into each one of those aspects, because I think ambition today, because of this burnout culture, is almost getting a dirty word. And I think it's really important that we understand actually we're wired for impact. And it's okay to have ambition, and ambition is a positive thing when it's channeled the right way. When we get into a place of overproductivity, that is generally a sign that we are out of kilter, chasing something that perhaps isn't a soulful wish, a soulful want that is in tune with where we should actually be applying our focus and attention. And when we get to the question of balance, I think it's an absolute myth that people are searching and yearning for balance, because actually, if you want a physidynamic life and you want to lean into your ambitions and reach for your stars, actually, you've got to be very strategic about how you manage your life to get to that place. So the body physically is trying to orient and pull us back into balance. That's homeostasis. So we can respect that balance in the body is something that we can honor and we can manage through energy and what we consume. And there can be a way of physically grounding ourselves in balance. But when it comes to our lives and achieving our dreams, for us to be in a place of balance is a case of conscientiously choosing how we direct our time, our energy, and our focus. And this relentless hustle culture, this frenetic productivity that's making too many of us fall over, is because we believe that to succeed is about climbing perhaps other people's ladders. It's misdirected effort. It's actually not being true to where it is that we could be applying ourselves most pertinently. And so it's for us to do the work and just understand where our skills and our strengths can enable us to reach our ambitions, and to just strategically focus there and stop being derailed by all the noise and all the attention that can suck us in the wrong directions.
Yeah, so burnout is a signal that actually is communicating to us that our priorities, our passions, they're not in harmony with one another.
Exactly.
And that's an opportunity to recalibrate.
It is exactly that. And the reason I've written my book, and the reason I care so much about teaching and empowering ambitious individuals how not to have burnout, is because cyclically on my own journey, I was very motivated, very excited, push, but I kept burning out, and I kept burning out over a 15-year period of running a business, raising a family, climbing a corporate ladder, and constantly really achieving and succeeding, but constantly ending up in hospital with immune collapse and ill, burnout. And when I would have these episodes of burnout, I would try and course correct. I'd be like, oh my goodness, it's my physicality. Right. I need to give up alcohol, give up processed foods, cut back on sugar, sleep a little bit more. That didn't work in isolation. Then I would try, well, let's layer in some mental change. Okay, let's do a bit more journaling. Let's meditate. But actually, that didn't necessarily end the burnout cycle. It was only when I realized that also the emotional stress that we are under is having a detrimental impact on our overall ability to perform as well. And I think this is really under addressed in a lot of the well-being literature and the advice that is talked about, because there's such a focus on the mental, there's such a focus on the physical, but actually the emotional is where the clues lie in terms of where the biggest transformations should be made in your life. So that could be the work that you're actually doing that you don't necessarily enjoy, or the culture that you're working within that doesn't chime with your value set. But until you become aware of where you're being drained emotionally, I don't believe you can ever soar. So it's a blend of the emotional, the mental, and the physical.
So in the book, you share strategies to help readers reflect on their physical, their emotional, and their mental capacities, and how to bring those more into balance. Can you give us some more examples of that?
Well, growth always starts with self-awareness. So everything has to begin with becoming very aware. And I talk about 4 core areas. The first part of the book is all around the inner foundations that I believe you need to embrace to solidify the power to go out and have impact in the world. So within that, it's understanding energy, it's understanding time, it's understanding your overall mindset, and it's understanding your intentionality. The easiest way to create change is to start by doing an exercise that I call a conscious calendar, where you look at or a snapshot of a week of your calendar. So you can do it on Outlook or in Excel or even in a lovely paper hardback book. And if you look at how you are spending your time and color code the different types of tasks from sleep, from domestic, from progressive meeting to admin task to boring non-contributory meeting, color code everything, and then have a look at that week snapshot, because that will give you a really strong indication of where you're actually spending your time. So I work with a lot of clients. I'm a coach, a success strategist, and I'm constantly working to empower individuals to step into this place of delivery and their highest contribution. And I had a client once who, she kept telling me she was a writer, but she was very busy and distracted by the day job and the kids, but she was a writer. And I constantly had to probe of, well, how much writing are you doing a week? And it was none, it was never. And so, then the question is, well, are you really a writer? Because if you're a writer, you write. So have a look at your week, take that view, take the learnings, look at the majority of the colors that you do or don't like, and understand where you could make very easy, simple shifts and just direct your time in the right directions.
That's a great example. And yeah, people who say they're doing something but not actually doing it, it usually comes down to just a lack of awareness about how they're spending that time.
Exactly. So it's very easy to just look at that. The other thing to think about is the difference between subjective and objective attention. And we know we're in the attention economy. Everything is vying to distract us. And we've got a sort of a prefrontal cortex, a bias towards novelty. So we're always going to be looking at the shiny and the new. And, we know how social media has become a distraction, and it's actually shrinking our grey matter, which is frightening. It's actually diminishing our ability to plan long term because we're so reactive. But if we are conscious with that subjective attention, we are so much more likely to thrive and soar in all the right directions. But it's up to us to really architect our lives and our knowledge consumption in the areas that matter most, and not allow ourselves to be distracted, and also not try and push too far in too many directions. I mean, I've had periods where I've been running large digital organizations with a hat on as a chief digital officer. And so I'm sort of in my, let's try and prove myself domain, used to think, well, I need to know everything. I need to know everything about all the different digital marketing channels. I must learn about programmatic. I must learn about paid social media, learn. I would set myself these crazy tasks of, I'll read Exchange Wire, the Digital Digest, and I'll do all that before I've even got out of bed, in this sort of ridiculous pursuit of, I need that knowledge. But actually, that was misdirecting my own energy in a way that wasn't really fundamental to the job that I needed to do. There were experts that already had that knowledge, that were living and breathing it and interested in it, by the way. Whereas I should have been spending my time focusing on leadership and preserving my energy to direct the business into profitability and high performance and all the juicy areas that actually was the reason I was employed in that particular role. But I'd got sort of skedaddled and sidelined into a world of, oh, let's consume all this other stuff. But actually, our power lies in that conscious growth and really being directional with what it is that we consume and learn, and how that relates to our core purpose intention.
Yeah, you made a wonderful distinction in the book about managing one's time and one's energy. And it sounds like that even if we're intentional about how we're setting up our day, we need to be as intentional about how we feel as we go through that day and managing our own energy.
Exactly that. And I think, I focus on that a lot because so many of my clients come to me with this complaint that they don't have enough time or energy. The interesting thing is when you pursue what really matters to you, like on a heart level, time expands, your energy expands. When you're doing work that you really enjoy, it's play, it's not even work. And so all that joy can come into your own life if you're pursuing that which matters most. And so I always draw this analogy to really get people to understand it. When you fall in love, suddenly there's all the time in the world to be with that person, to find the togetherness time. And it's the same when there's a project that you're impassioned by. Time literally expands because you're directing it in that flowy, glowy state. And so it's all for us to work with, but too often inadvertently, we're chasing energy, we're chasing time. And it's actually detrimental to our ability to actually get into that lovely flow of graceful productivity. And that's really the fundamental in the book is I believe that we can all flourish when we're in this state of graceful productivity, and it should not be frenetic and it shouldn't be over productivity. It should be graceful.
Let's zoom out for a moment and discuss the role that leaders play in preventing these burnout cultures from starting in the first place. And you contend that it's possible for leaders to be both demanding and kind.
Yeah.
So why is this kind leadership an antidote to burnout? And what are some things that leaders might do to actually start practicing that?
Yeah, I am very passionate about kind leadership. I've been in cultures where I've seen unkind leadership. And actually what that tends to do is create a workforce of fear and competitiveness, and it lowers productivity. But I think it's very important to know that the individuals within an organization have to take some self-accountability for burnout. And it is not for the workforce to lay blame at the management's door, because all too often you can see well-being agendas galore and shareholder letters that pledge people first as the mainstay. And there can be all sorts of initiatives that organizations can put in place. But if the individuals aren't taking that own responsibility to self-direct and have that self-agency to be responsible for their time and their energy, then it's never really going to work. So I think that leaders in businesses need to be really guiding the workforce to kindly say, yes, we're doing this, we're putting these programs in place for you, but it's up to you to make sure that you uphold your strengths and manage your place on the stress productivity curve. So leaders need to really focus on teaching that, because we don't learn it in school. And I think that's a mistake as well. But it's also for organizations to be very aware that a thriving workforce comes where there is a high level of positive relational energy from leaders. And it's study after study proves that when leaders show up as kind, inspiring, engaged, and present, their teams thrive. And what is that about? It's about feeling seen, understood, heard, and recognized by your leader. So the more leaders that go into their organizations wanting to see their teams and work with and harness the talents and the uniqueness of every human in front of them, that is where the magic starts to happen. And I firmly believe that is possible for every leader.
If you look out to the future and try to imagine how this burnout antidote might be brought to scale, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm starting to work on now. So my book is called Big Impact Without Burnout, but I've created a program called the Big Impact Way, which I'm now trialing with organizations where I come in and I'm trying to teach that self-agency, that self-accountability, so that employees are empowered and in their power to know that they can soar. So I think it's about the organizations recognizing that it's not enough to partner with a meditation app and say, you've all got access to that, because it comes down to a fundamental understanding of individuals to take that ownership of where their skills lie, where their strengths lie, and how they can have maximum impact by levying their highest contribution in the right directions and not being distracted. So it's really teaching employees that it's for them to own.
The book is Big Impact Without Burnout, and the author, and she's starting to make a big impact in this area as well, is Bianca Best. Bianca, thanks for sharing your wish with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.